Well, hello everyone. We are live in our webinar of how to use Scrum with Trello and Placker. My name is Gustavo. I'm from Placker Customer Success, and we are so glad to have you here today because we truly believe that if you know the correct tools, if you know how to use a software to develop your projects, your results are going to be much better. Okay? So, starting now, I'm going to share with you some good practices on how to use Placker and Trello. I will also show you the method called Scrum. So it's a framework in which you have some ways to organize your cards and your boards. So stay with us because we're going to share many interesting things with you today, okay? And if at any time you have any question, please leave it the comment section, or there's a button also called Ask a Question, and I'll be glad to answer all the ones that I can, okay? Well, starting now then. Okay, so the main thing that we're going to talk about today is how to deal with complex work. Because in our companies, I suppose that it's like that for you too, we're not dealing with simple stuff that is like ABC and you know exactly everything that you have to do. We usually have many challenges, right? So we have to deal with customers, we have to deal with our boss, we have to deal with our teammates, and we need information for that, and we need updates, we need to know the status, and how are we going to deal with so many variables at the same time. Well, we will show today how to use Scrum and why Scrum can be the system you need to put all the things in place, how to implement Placker to make it visual so you have a software to help you to do that, and tips on using board to support your work. So it's going to be very practical, and by the end of this webinar, you will all also get a special bonus. It's a gift that we're going to give you, okay? Well, this is an overview of the Scrum framework. So it works in this set of phases. It was developed by Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland. So basically, you're going to start with a product backlog. It's a place where you put all the information about your project, about what you're going to develop. Then we're going to move to sprint backlog. So we don't know how the project is going to be exactly, especially if it's a long-term project, but we know what's right ahead. We know what we're going to do the next 2 weeks, for example. So that's called a sprint. You're going to plan what you're going to do in the following 2 weeks. Then we're going to execute these tasks, and by the end of this sprint, we're going to do a review and a retrospective, so we can keep our project on track and see if there's anything that we should add to our product backlog and that we should work on the following weeks. Okay, and all this time you will have the daily stand-up meetings. It's a quick meeting that you can do with your team every day, and it's very quick. That's why it's a stand-up meeting, because we can do it standing. It's not supposed to last more than 15 minutes. And we're going to say what we did today, what we did yesterday, what we're going to do today, and if there's any problem that we need collaboration on. So Placker can also provide information for that. And after that, you're going to have your product increment. Okay, so we're going to deliver sprint by sprint until we have a good product. Well, so that's how basically it works. And I'm going to show you today how to create this product backlog and the sprint backlog and keep your work organized. Also, how to prioritize list of tasks, story points, and how to use flexible lists. So starting now our demo, I'm going to share with you my screen. Okay, so this is an example of a board that you can use on Placker. Let me hide this taskbar. So here we have an example of a marketing strategy product backlog. So our product here is the marketing campaign of the company. And for that, we're going to have many different cards, and we're going to have mainly 3 goals here. So that's how we divided the list of this project. We have attract leads, retain customers, and branding. Okay, so these are the categories of the tasks. and we have Google AdWords, events, alliances, SEO. So they're all pieces of work that we have to do. So blog, email marketing, social media, YouTube channel, press kit, brochures, business cards, banners. Wow, how many things, right, that we have to do. And how are we going to select what we are going to work on first? Okay, so we're going to basically prioritize. So what is the most important thing and what are we able to do right now? That's why we're going to use prioritizing in our cards. Okay, so basically we can select one of these cards that we have, for example, email marketing. So what is the priority of email marketing? Is it high? Is it low? Is it medium? So we're going to click email marketing and then show empty attributes. Let me highlight my mouse so you can view better. Okay, so email marketing, let's show the empty attributes, and one of these empty attributes is exactly the priority. So we can set a priority for each of these tasks. For example, email marketing will be a medium priority. Okay, so this is one of the ways that you can set your priority. And also, what we can also measure here is not only how important this task is, but how complex it is to finish. Okay, is it very hard to do email marketing? Is it simple? So we're going to basically set the story points for that. The more story points the card has, the more complex it is. So basically we have some here. For example, our blog is 5, our press kit is 5, brochures have 3 story points. Email marketing, let's say that we have here 3 estimated story points. Okay, so 3 story points. It's not that complex, but it's not also so simple. So 3 story points. Okay, so are you following me? Is it clear for you? If you need to ask anything, please feel free. But now we do have the priorities of most of these cards and the number of story points, which will help us know when we arrive at the office to know exactly what we're going to do. Well, what else do we have here? We can also add these attributes in a different way. So for example, social media and YouTube channel. We don't have the priority or the story points for that. We could, like we saw before, click and select, or there is a faster way of doing that. So how can we use Placker to save time? We can set each list to be a specific priority. So we have a low priority list, a medium priority list, and a high priority list. Okay, so how do we do that? We click filter in settings, and then we're going to select our lists to be set as priority. And then we're going to click refresh board. So take a look how it is now. So instead of having those 3 lists, attract leads and branding, now we have a list for not assigned, low, medium, and high. So these are our high priority cards. And our social media and YouTube channel, which don't have a priority right now, we can click and drag to each of these lists. Okay, so how important, what is the priority of social media? Let's say this is high, so I can click social media and drag to high. And how important is our YouTube channel? So we're going to drag this. Let's say this is medium. Okay, so it's a simple way of setting the lists and then dragging to all the lists. Okay, so if you have to pick something from these lists that for you to work on, you could start with the high priority list. What else? We could also have our lists based on story points. Okay, so filter and setting, list as story points, refresh board, and then we have a list of the cards that have 0 story points because we didn't set it yet, social media and YouTube channel. We have 2 story points for business cards. This is something simple. We have 3 story points for these cards and 5 for those. Well, how many story points are we going to do social media? So this is kind of complex, but not so much. So we're going to click and drag to 3. And YouTube channel is simple, so we're going to drag it to 2 story points. Okay. In this case, we only used 2, 3, and 5, but of course you could have more if you want. Okay. Well, so now we have the complete information. We have the lists. If we want to go back to the default mode, then we can click filter and settings and select lists as the regular list like we had before. So you can basically switch between lists depending on what's the attribute that you're analyzing right now. Right, so moving on, we're going to start our sprint now. So we have the complete information of our product, and now we're going to select what we're going to do the next 2 weeks, because we can't do everything. It's too much work to do only the next 2 weeks. We need a couple of months to do everything. But in our next sprint, we're gonna have a time frame, so 2 weeks, in which the team completes specific tasks from the product backlog. Okay, and we can use card mirroring to sync the cards between these 2 boards, the sprint backlog and the product backlog. Use our weekly planner to assess the feasibility and change the status by list. Well, so let's do it. We're going to add now a second board to view the sprint backlog, but instead of leaving the product backlog board and entering the sprint backlog, we're going to select those in the same screen. Okay, so that's something that we're not able to do only if we use Trello. Of course, we can combine Trello with Placker. I'm going to show you how to do this later, but in Trello, we can't have 2 boards at the same time, but in Placker we can. We're going to click select boards, and then we're going to select sprint backlog. Okay, so take a look. We have 2 boards now in the same screen. We have our product backlog and we have our sprint backlog, which has lists, for example, next sprint, to do, doing, QA, it's quality assurance, blocked, and done. What we're going to do now is drag. We're going to select which of these cards we are able to do the next 2 weeks. So we're going to do, for example, our blog. So I'm going to click blog and drag to the board below. I'm going to select this to next sprint. And the moment you click and drag from one board to the other, you're going to be asked if you want to copy, create a single copy, if you want to move. So you're going to remove from one board and add it to the other, or if you want to create a mirror. So it will be duplicate in the 2 boards, and everything you change in one board will automatically reflect the change in the other. Okay. So this can be very useful. So we created a mirror here. We're going to do the same thing for, let's say, what else do we have of high priority? We have Google AdWords. I'm going to create a mirror. I'm going to select business cards. Okay. Do we have anything else with high priority? Social media. So right now we have 15 story points, 5 for blog, 5 for Google AdWords, 2 on business cards, and 2 on social media. We can select something else. So let's say, let's do also alliances. Okay. So that's enough. That's enough work for our next 2 weeks. Then we can move it from next sprint to do, to doing, to done when as we accomplish these cards. And another thing that we can do is set a date for each of these cards. Okay. I suppose that many of you already know how to set the due dates for the cards. You could simply click and select when you're going to start. Let's say our blog, we're going to start today, and we're going to finish this by Friday. Okay, so that's the intuitive way, the simple way of putting dates into your cards. But Placker provides you a faster way of doing that, which is also by changing the lists. So now we're going to click Filter and Settings, and we're going to use our lists. We've seen already how to do it by priority and by story points. Now we're going to select Weekly Plan. Okay, so select Weekly Plan. Then you will have this board set on earlier, this week, next week, the week of December 24th, December 31st. Okay, so remember, we can only we're planning only our next 2 weeks. So let's see if we're going to be able to do everything. So blog will be due this week. Google AdWords can we do it this week also? Let's say that yes, we have enough team for that. We're now, let's say about the business card. Is it possible to do this week? So let's say that no, we can't do this week because the workload is already too big. We're going to do this the next week. Okay, so next week. Social media also next week. And alliances also next week. Okay. And when you do that, it automatically adds a due date to the next week. So you don't have to manually assign your due dates. You can see that the same thing that we did on Sprint Backlog, the board that's underneath, was reflected on the product backlog board. Well, okay, so now we know what we're going to do this week and the next week. We know the dates, and we're going to keep track of this. Okay, so let's go back to the default list view. So filter and settings, let's set our lists as lists, refresh the board. And now we're going to move it to the next list. So blog, we're going to move it, for example, to do, doing, done, okay, when it's finished. So you can simply click and drag to reflect the status, okay? Also, every card has a specific status. So for example, blog, its status is open, so we can change it to started, to paused, to blocked whenever we have a difference, okay? And we can also keep it linked with the list. So let's say that every time a card is moved from next sprint to doing, it will receive a started status. Every time it's moved to blocked, it will receive a canceled status or a blocked status. Every time it's moved to done, it will receive a complete status. This can be done automatically by clicking the title of the board, select tracking, and select how you're going to track your progress. We're going to select list. So for example, next sprint is not scoped. To do is open. Doing started. Quality assurance is paused until it's ready. Blocked means it's blocked. And done, they are completed. Okay, so this saves you some time because you don't have to change the status. You can simply drag, and you can see that if I click blog and drag it to doing, for example, automatically we have an icon of started. If I move it to done, it will be marked as complete. Okay, so status completed and progress 100%. All of this done automatically. Well, let's say that we have already started Google AdWords and the next cards are to do. Well, so that's it. Many features that you can use here using our board view. And now we have our project updated. Okay, if you want to keep track what you're going to do on sprint 1, what you're going to do on sprint 2, sprint 3, so every 2 weeks you have a different sprint, you can also set these sprints in your product backlog or your sprint backlog. So by clicking the title of the board, you can select milestones. So every sprint is a milestone. And in this case, we have sprint number 1, which will be from December it will start on December 10th until December 22nd. Okay, so every card that is between this week and the following week will automatically be assigned. So let's click Assign Cards, all the cards that have a planned end date in this period. And our next sprint, then, we're going to add now sprint number 2. And this one will be from December 24th to January 4th. Okay, so let's assign all the cards that have a planned end date for this period. Well, so we can also add a different color for that. And click Done, and here we go. So you can see that we have some cards here in our product backlog that have a blue flag, which means they will be done on sprint 1. Okay, so that's it about our sprint planning. Next, we're going to execute this phase. We're going to instruct our team to do this phase and keep it all updated. So as a project manager or as a product owner, you can have your board automatically updated, and you can also track the information of these boards. Okay, so next we're going to see the sprint retrospective. Let's say that we have arrived to the end of the sprint and we're going to review the status of all the work that we have done, discuss ways to improve next sprints, and use dashboards with filters to analyze the consistent data and get ready to plan the next sprints. Well, so we're going to click Track now, and we're going to create a new dashboard. Okay, so let's click Create Dashboard. You can see that when you click Track, you have the default dashboard. So you can see the number of cards on each list, the number of cards by member. In this case, we're not working with members, but the number of cards in sprint 1, sprint 2. So there you have some information that is by default. But if you want specific information, you're probably going to want to create a dashboard. So let's do this. So we can select, for example, we will have a dashboard on our product backlog. Next, we're going to set a filter. In this case, we don't need a filter actually. So let's move to set layout. We're going to start with an empty dashboard, finalize, and let's call this product dashboard. So the good thing about creating your own dashboard is that you can create the information that you want, the widgets that you find the most useful, and you can always change it and save so you can keep your team updated. So here we're going to add a widget first. We're going to add a graph, and the type of graph that we're going to add is by completion. Okay, so completion, and we're going to select a different unit of measure. So by default, let me show you how this completion graph works. It will basically show how many of the cards that you have done and how many you were planned to do. So for example, if you hover the mouse, let's say on Monday, December 10th, you will see that you will have 1 card completed, but you had at least 2 that you had planned to complete by this date. Okay, but the thing is that the number of cards is not the best measure, because a card can be something very simple, like for example, send an email could be a card, or it can be something very complex, like design the architecture of a software. So how do we differentiate if we have a simple card or if we have a complex card? Okay, do you know the answer for that? So if you said story points, you're correct. So we can use story points. Like we said before, we have cards that are complex that have 5 story points. We have cards that are simple that have 2 story points. Then we're going to use this information to provide a reliable completion chart. Okay, so let's click Edit Details. So we can change the unit of measure of completion. Instead of number of cards, which is the default unit of measure, we're going to select story points. And here you go. Now we know how many story points we have to do in each date. So for example, on Thursday, December 13th, we're going to have 5 story points completed. Actually, we already have 5 story points completed, and we have 10 story points that we have planned to complete by this date. Okay, so moving on, we're going to add more widgets so you can have more information in this dashboard. Okay, well, so let's add a widget. Now we're going to add a tracker, and we want to see how many story points we have in each, let's say, in each list. Okay, so unit of measure, we're going to use story points. And we're going to save. So we have 16 story points to attract leads, 13 story points on retaining customers, and 13 on branding. Okay, so you know how much work you're going to do in each of these goals, right? We can also add more widgets. So we can have a tracker for example, milestone, no, not milestone, sorry, for priority. So we know how many story points we have in each level of priority. We can have also another widget that will show us the number of story points by, let's say, by milestone could be. So unit of measure in this case will be story points. And you can see that we need more space underneath, so we can remove this area below. And now we know how many story points we have. Okay? And in the right side, we can also add another widget. And this widget will be an attribute picker. And we're going to select the attribute by, let's say, by milestone. Okay. Actually, let me add another widget here. Let's track by status. This is something very useful. How many story points have we completed? How many are paused? So this is also very valuable information for a manager. Okay, once you're done, click Save Changes. And there you have it. Here's our dashboard showing us the number of story points on each level. We have also a picker. So for example, we can filter automatically this board, and this is it. Okay? Well, so next we're going to see the projects by Placker power up in Trello. So you can also change your lists by using Trello instead of Placker if you prefer. So we can go back to the home screen. And if you want to update your product backlog using Trello, you can click Show More Board Information, export to Trello, and then you can enable the Placker power up on Trello. So you can also edit this using Trello instead of Placker. Okay. So there's our product backlog. You can see that now we have an Trello icon here. So we're going to click this Trello icon. This will automatically open our board on Trello. And you can see that all the information that we have on Placker is synchronized with between Placker and Trello. And if you want to change, for example, the priority of blog, for example, Trello doesn't have this attribute. So if you click blog, you can change the members, the labels, checklists, but not the story points. Instead, you could also use a power up. So we're going to enable now. If you have a Placker account, you can use this power up. So we're going to click menu here in the left and the right hand side, click more, open, I'm sorry, so power ups, and we're going to search for Placker power up. Here it is. We're going to add, and there you have it. Okay, so now it's enabled. You can log into your Placker account, and when you click your card now, you will see that you have more information. You have story points, you have status, you have effort. So all the information that you had before in Trello. You can also click add plan attribute. Then you can add, for example, budget. You can add traffic light. So many effort, many other attributes. Okay, so it's up to you now. It's your choice if you want to update this using Trello or Placker. Okay, guys, so that's it for our demo today. I hope you enjoyed it. There were some topics that we were not able to cover. So, for example, sprint scale on Gantt chart, use templates to create boards and cards, time tracking based on progress updates, use effort to estimate work, and we also have other webinars. So, for example, we have Supercharged Trello with Placker webinar. We will have one of these tomorrow. So if you still didn't have the chance to watch this webinar, we're going to talk about scheduling. We're going to talk about other attributes that we didn't mention today. So please feel free to visit our webinars page and sign up to Supercharge Trello with Placker. Now it's up to you. So go ahead and create your Scrum board with detailed information, add your team members, encourage them to keep your cards updated, plan your product and sprint backlogs, and if you need any help with anything, you can always contact us or visit the help center. So help.placker.com, and we will be glad to help you. Okay, we also have articles there. So if you search, for example, how do I add a member? How do I create a milestone? So you will have this information there as well. Okay. You will also have the recording of this webinar, so many other ways to learn more. As promised, we have a bonus for all of you, and the bonus today is that all of you who stayed with us until now will get a $100 worth consulting session for free. So in Placker, we also offer consulting sessions. We can give you advice one-on-one, so one of our experts can help you plan and track your work, okay? So if you want to schedule your consulting session, go ahead and click the call to action button here. So it's schedule my bonus. If you don't see the button, then please send me an email. So gustavo@placker.com, or send us a message in the chat, and we will be glad to help you in this consulting session, and we can schedule the best time for us to talk. Okay, guys, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And now it's time for questions and answers. So feel free to ask us anything, or if you prefer, you can also ask us in the chat so we can give you one-on-one help. Okay? Well, guys, so thank you very much for staying with us today. I know it's a lot of information, but you know that it's very helpful. So I know it takes some time to plan your project, but if you do that, you will have information at the tip of your fingers. So anytime a teammate asks you how the status of the project is going, you will have this information right away. Okay, guys? So thank you very much for everything, and I will see you the next time. Okay? Bye. See ya.